Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, how are you? Hey, Rob, how are you doing?
I am doing good. 1 second, just a little scrambly here. I want to make sure I got your information in front of me.
No.
This is Michael, is our co-host. We will be chatting with you today.
Hey, Michael.
Okay, let's see. So the way we do this is we are going to have it'll take roughly an hour, assuming that's okay with you. We'll end up doing a. We'll start with a little green room thing, essentially, which is going to be like we're going to hit record. That'll be for the video side of it. That'll start essentially now. Michael will do a little bit of editing, but effectively right now, you are live. Hello to everybody in the studio audience, as it were. What we'll end up doing is we'll kick into the audio portion of the podcast and okay, there we go. Kick in the audio portion of the podcast. I'll introduce myself, introduce Michael, introduce himself. I'll allow you to introduce yourself, and then we will step right into the conversation. We don't have set questions really, as much as we just sort of like try to make this organically as possible a conversation. So it'll start with your introduction and sort of how where you go from there, and we'll just start asking questions basically from there. So let me make sure. Also want to make sure I got this up real quick. Apologies. Close the window. I should not have. So get a little bit of your background. We'll do about an hour. Like I said, we'll split it into 2 episodes when the audio comes out. As far as you're concerned, we're just going to go all the way through. So we'll figure out the split, just sort of what organically works as we're going through it.
Okay.
We'll wrap up, and then we'll have a little bonus afterwards. It'll be a challenge that you give to the listeners, or maybe a parting thought or point that you want to leave with them, and then we'll wrap it up. Audience-wise, this is technical people figure beginning up to actually almost any phase, but usually beginning to mid-level in their career as developers, software developers, but also entrepreneurs. People are working side hustles, things of that nature. So they definitely have a business side to them as well. I guess we'll start. Any questions from you?
No, that's very comprehensive. I think I got the general gist of the order.
Okay. Michael, sound check, everything good? Okay. So you have a lot of noise in the background there?
My heater just kicked on, and you were saying there was some feedback, so I put my headphones on, so hopefully that's better.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, sometimes that happens. Yeah, for a second there was some weird little thing. Sounded like something was blowing into a mic. All right. So all that being said, then let me get that set up, and we're going to go out. Thrice dolls. Oh no! Are we still? Before I do this, back that up. This is still going to be season 27, right? We're still on board momentum.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'll let you know when because we still have to do the actual introduction to the other one.
Okay, cool. Plus, I guess we should wrap up this season. Okay, sorry, a little behind the scenes magic there, since we do things sometimes a little out of order.
No problem.
Oh no! Well, hello and welcome back. We are continuing our season of Building Better Developers, Developreneur podcast. This season, we are focused on getting unstuck, moving forward momentum, progress, all of those things that are basically getting you from here to somewhere forward. I am Rob Broadhead, one of the founders of Develpreneur, also one of the founders, or actually the founder of RB Consulting, where we help you with a technology reality check. When you're about to step into a big project, we're going to have you sort of like set your foundation and your basis first, talk about where you're at and where you want to go, so that now you have a lot more likelihood of that project being successful and not being yet another statistic where somebody spent a lot of money on a project that they then wish they hadn't, or wish they'd done it a little bit differently. Good thing and bad thing. Good thing is I am I'm finally into spring. I'm getting to see sun. I spent a weekend that was like actually like it's literally, I guess, on the beach, even though we're like 20 feet away from it. But got some good sun. The bad thing of all of this is that I tend to burn as opposed to tan, as opposed to somebody else that was with me that gets incredibly like awesome color tan like that. So, we all have our cross to bear, as it were. One of mine is having my co-host Michael. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Malash. I'm one of the co-founders of Building Better Developers, also known as Develpreneur. I'm also the founder of Envision QA, where we build custom tests and application softwares to help streamline your business, remove the bottlenecks, and help you basically scale up so that you can work on your business instead of working in your business. Good thing, bad thing. Good thing, it's been a while because I've been so busy, heads down working and things of that nature. I finally cleaned my office. My office has been bad for months. And Rob knows this. I'm like kind of like the clean desk guy. So my desk is like the only thing that's clean in my office. Everything else just kind of became clutter. So I was finally able to organize everything, get it cleaned up. Bad side to that was it was actually cold yesterday, beautiful day outside, and I actually wanted to be outside more than cleaning my office, but at least I got the office clean.
Yeah, sometimes we have to do that. So today we have a guest with us again, and I'm going to let Dr. James go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. James Maisiri, all the way from Southern Africa, specifically Zimbabwe, although I spend most of my time in South Africa. I'm a researcher. I'm very interested in how AI, Internet of Things, robotics affect the labor market within the African context. Good thing, bad thing. Let's see. The good thing is I'm visiting home. I'm finally home for Easter weekend. So it was great to see my parents. The bad thing, I miss going back to work. I really miss going. I really have that itch to get things done and to get back into it. But yeah, one day at a time.
I know that feeling very well, where you're just like, it's great to have a vacation and some time off, but then also, especially when you love your work, as actually I think so a lot of people in the audience may be, where you're like chomping at the bit to get back to getting that next project done. Now,
Yeah.
You're in a world that is like that is the hot topic right now. It's like, and well, artificial intelligence, AI is, but I love your little bit different perspective. It's really about like, how does AI and all of these emerging technologies, how do they impact the workforce? How do they, in fact, what is the human side of these new technology advances? And especially when you've got, which I think we'll start with this, because my impression is that when you start with, you've got the African context basically is you don't have as much infrastructure, even though this, you're still shooting ahead with high-end technology, modern technology, we'll call it, but you're still, maybe the infrastructure isn't there. And so I guess we'll start with that. Is where do you see, what are some of like the unique problems that you see in, like, let's just start with that, artificial intelligence in the workforce in, the African environment in that context?
So a lot of governments within the African context see AI as an opportunity to leap forward to solve all their problems. But as you have mentioned, the infrastructure there is beyond, it's just horrible. I mean, 90% of the computing power is controlled by America and China globally, and Africa, all 53 countries contribute 1% of the computing power. So how do we even train our own AIs, build our own AIs, or develop our own AIs in that regard? We have an electricity problem, a serious electricity problem. Nigeria's data centers pull enough electricity for 4 hours a day, and the rest of the day for the data centers, they use generators that run on diesel. So this is, this is just not a sustainable way of infrastructure to build AI systems. 8 out of 10 people in the world that do not have access to electricity belong or stay in the African continent. So infrastructure is a serious problem. But I can say that governments have been thinking hard about it. I'm not sure if you know, familiar with Strive Masiwa.
Mm-mm.
So he's a dollar billionaire. He was born in Zimbabwe, but he now stays in America, and he has made a deal with Nvidia to get those chips ready for 5 African regions, so that we can now start trying to build our own AI systems. So we are negotiating. Governments are trying to partner with each other, partner with the private sector to try and build infrastructure so we can build our own AI systems. Because right now, because we can't, we end up importing AI systems from the global north. And when those AI systems enter our society, it doesn't serve well in our context. They're like adverse effects in our context, and there are many cases like that. So yeah, that's I think that's where we're at right now.
Wow, there's a whole world to unpack. Sometimes we get this. There's a season worth of content right there alone. So let's start with so one of the things that we talk about regularly is that AI is a tool, and sometimes people jump to the tool before they're dealing with the actual problem to be solved. And I'm wondering if this is like what you're talking about is a perfect example. Is it while these countries, and it makes sense that they want to use AI to sort of like leapfrog, jump back into modern or to beat the competition. There's also some foundational stuff that is missing because they do that, but then they really don't have the resources to do it. Now, from a workforce point of view, is where are we at in the African workforce as far as being able to actually leverage AI to solve problems? I mean, once you get rid of it, you talk about the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure it's just not there right now. But are there think tanks, are the governments working on trying, sort of both sides of this, trying to get people get a workforce that is AI ready, that is comfortable with AI, that is going to be able to use it so that when the infrastructure is there, then they'll have the knowledge workers to be able to dive in and actually leverage that AI.
So the context is extremely fragmented right now, because there's some industries that have just not technologically evolved or even within the space to adopt AI and technology. And then there's some areas where they are. I mean, in countries like Zimbabwe, for example, like 66% of the entire population are still in the rural areas. So they're not even at the AI stage or the ICT stage. They're far behind. But in those fragmented waves, we are seeing promise of a lot of workers being absolutely interested in getting ready to use AI. Whether the government is preparing workers or not for it. So for a lot of employees and a lot of individual Africans, they see AI as an opportunity to change their circumstance, whether it's unstable employment or fluctuating life conditions. So they look at AI to solve whatever problem, to think of a new problem or to step forward. I think I was reading, 64% of workers reported using AI at work in Africa, according to a PwC 2025 survey, which is much higher than the global workforce. So what we're saying is that the global workforce sees AI and kind of gets a sense of fear, like it could take jobs and all that type of stuff. But for the African context, because of their conditions, there's a sense of optimism that this technology could change the situation that I'm in specifically. Maybe that's because they don't have secure employment as you would see, as often as you would see within the global north. African governments themselves are lagging behind in terms of AI literacy and getting the population together. Right now, conversations are within academia and think tanks. So just the whole ChatGPT explosion, just individual employees tend to adopt those AIs to step and move forward.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because that's one of the things we're seeing, also in other countries there are knowledge workers that are finding it as a tool that is allowing them to really become productive and to advance and almost become, it definitely leads to more an entrepreneurial kind of side, because now people are able to solve their own problems with the help of AI and build something that they otherwise would have had a higher level of entry, would have been a higher cost of entry. So it makes complete sense. And it's great to hear that you have these Africans that are saying that this is not a threat, this is an opportunity.
If I can add, you must also consider the demographic of Africans, right? We have a large young population compared to other spaces in the world. I think 40% of the working population will be African by 2030, and that number increases a lot by 2050, right? So we have a large, enormous youth. Unlike in other countries where the fertility rate has been going down, and you know, they've been struggling with their population. So these young people who are who are native to technology and social media and this AI phase are eager to explore more what this is about. This is what can change my life compared to previous generations, maybe my parents, my grandparents. This is it, this technology. So we're seeing a lot of research that suggests that.
Well, and that lines up with what I'm experiencing just personally as well. Is that there's a lot of I've found a huge explosion in in media in general. There's a lot of African-based podcasts that are very they're talking about some very complex topics. They're looking at entrepreneurial stuff. They're looking at business-driven stuff, and it is usually younger, 20s, 30 somethings that are out there that are really driving this wave and are very. I think for some people that think that maybe the infrastructure may not be there, but the knowledge to work with technology obviously is, because they're embracing this wherever they can. Now, is this coming from the push, besides the individuals that are there that are just they're diving in, they see this as an opportunity to maybe better themselves or escape a situation they'd rather not be in? Is there any support that's coming from companies and and governments? And if so, what is that mix? Is there more governmental help? Is there more business and industry where they're seeing the help? Or is it sort of a 50-50 split?
So there's a lot of companies that are coming forward. I think in the last 4 years, AI ecosystem startups have increased by 240%. This is a stat that came out last year, right? So a lot of companies are seeing opportunities. I mean, look at it this way. If there are subsistence farmers or agricultural farmers, small farmers that have been farming for a long time, but may not have the expertise to handle pests and all that type of stuff, AI startups have been introducing AI apps such as Smart Scouting, right? Where you take a picture of a leaf and it tells you what pests are there and how to do it. A good example would be in Malawi, an AI app called Mlangwazi. I'm sure I mispronounced that. I'm sorry to my Malawians. But yeah, see, such unique opportunities are like that in Africa, where subsistence, rural or small farmers need those technologies, need a PhD AI app in the agricultural field to advise them to like the Mlangzi app. And a lot of customer bases is coming up for that. So because Africa has specific problems, unique problems, AI is finding its cracks into there to create those specific African solutions, right? So a lot of push has been coming from companies. I must admit that there are governments that are supporting this push. Zimbabwe just released a national AI strategy, I think about 2 weeks ago. South Africa is there, Kenya, Nigeria. But these are just a small fraction of the entire continent. It's a handful of the countries are a handful of the entire continent. So it's still a bit fragmented. A lot of companies are still staying behind. From my observation, from where I stand, I would say companies are leading the way. The private sector are leading the way right now. Universities also are pushing. Universities, I must give them credit, are also doing research, partnering with companies in some instances. But I would say, if you look at the whole African puzzle, only a handful of African governments are actively voicing our strategies to go forward, and the push is by private companies.
So interestingly enough, you mentioned, how in other countries there's like in the U.S. there's a bit of a fear of AI within some of the younger workers, taking their jobs. My daughter and I had a conversation just the other day. I guess there's studies being done about how there's been a decline in cognitive thinking and problem solving because of AI. As your country starts to adapt this, you mentioned, you have the energy problem. Is there a concern that as you start kind of bringing everyone on, using AI more, that your infrastructure is not going to be able to support it, and that could actually cause a more detrimental effect to your younger generation than without AI?
Honestly, I think that concern is not loud enough. I think that a lot of governments are using the AI propaganda or narrative to help with their own political power, to show that they are leading the country to the future. Vote for me. Let's take Africa forward. So the conversations around the energy crisis is definitely not loud enough at all. It's still silent in the background. The way, from my observation, looks like, let's get this sorted now. We'll solve that. We'll figure out how to solve that energy crisis when we get there. Right now, let's just focus on the promises of the economic growth that this particular technology offers the continent. So that conversation is not loud enough. I mean, right now we're even struggling with the transitioning to going to renewable energy, right? Because a lot of countries are still dependent on coal, and there's a fight around that, like in South Africa already, of the consequences of that. So before we even get to the technology, we're not thinking about. I don't think that conversation is loud enough, I would say.
Yeah, I understand. Africa has a lot of different providences, a lot of different ideas, and you have some internal strife going on. So hopefully none of that's near you. But a lot of the I hear that a lot though, about how governments are, especially in Africa, and I love this, is how they're trying to put the people first. They're trying to, or at least from the political perspective, they're trying to push this forward. I love the positivity about it, how it's like, here, this will help. Let's try to use this tool to bring people together, bring the advancements. Where do you see some of the additional challenges, or maybe not even challenges? Where do you see some of the advances or advantages that Africa has to make this work? I realize you don't necessarily have the infrastructure, but given the fears of the U.S., problems of the rest of the world, how can Africa take this and become the front runner without the concerns or problems facing the other countries?
That's a good question. Before I answer that question, I just want to add, I don't want to create a universal image that no African is fearful about their job being taken up from AI. I mean, I've done research in pack houses where they have seen their jobs be taken by these technologies and robotics, and those workers are fear. So it's not a universal blanket statement. I just wanted to add that. But to answer your question, is there a world where Africa can adopt these technologies without having the infrastructural crisis? My opinion on this is not as popular, I would say, but I think a unification of all African countries to operate, kind of like how in America you have states under, on one soil. I think that's the only way to do it, because we need to gather up enough resources and have a unified strategy for it. Some countries don't have electricity, but some countries have an abundant resource for electricity. But because these are separate from each other in different continents, they don't communicate with each other. They don't partner with each other enough to actually take the step forward. So I think right now, if it was up to me, it's very unpopular. There's a whole remove the borders for African narrative, and there's pushbacks and arguments on that. I think that may be the only real way for Africa to compete within the AI race against China and America, because you guys are way far ahead, like you're galaxies ahead, and one individual country, which you can think about as one individual state, is just not going to do it. It's not going to catch up anytime soon, at all. So yeah.
No, understandable, and thank you for clarifying. I understand. There are people in any of the populace that there's fear of AI in general. Unfortunately, thanks to popular media, we've had that for generations, right? You have the Terminator,
Terminator, Matrix, yeah.
Inception. However, I love your enthusiasm here. So, what are some of the challenges, or what are some of the ways that you see getting the young people engaged right now? How do you envision getting the AI to them, getting them trained in the current situation? Granted, you don't have a unified Africa yet, but how can you get this momentum going on a smaller scale to a bigger scale? I know the universities are trying this, but what is your vision to get it to to basically those not at university, but just get to the younger generation first, so that it can trickle, the trickle up effect?
So for me, I'd grade out of the universities. I'll copy something like what China did. I know Beijing has done it, but they're spreading it across the whole of China. They have a rule where in the education system, from 6 years old, you're supposed to be learning AI literacy. So from the age of 6, you're already familiar with the technology, how the technology works, even if you're not the greatest, technical element of it, but you know it, you're familiar with it. I mean, there's many places in Africa right now, you go and say AI, and they have no idea what you're talking about. In fact, in my research with citrus migrant workers, seasonal workers specifically, had no idea what I was talking about when I was trying to investigate how AI affects their workplace, right? So if you have a place like China, 6 years old, you're growing up with this technology, you have this in the back of your mind, you're solving problems like this. And I think this can be done in two ways, because I also do studies with that, or I'm looking at research on how AI affects the educational sector. AI tutors are very effective. We're seeing extreme, good results within the African context, right? Especially where in countries where there's teacher shortages, specifically in STEM fields, right? So AI tutors work. I was at a conference the other week, and I met a company that has VR sets that they're introducing to Zimbabwe, and they're specifically going into rural places where there's no labs, there's no nothing. So those emerging technologies now, when they're doing those chemicals and learning those things, they immerse in it, and they actually get to practice and learn and get and see like the chemicals explode in the VR set type of thing, than to just theoretically read it on their textbooks, right? So we're seeing how AI itself as a technology, and these VR sets as a technology, can assist in making the skill set more accessible to different people within the African context. So I'd say something aggressive as what China did, getting it into primary schools, getting it into a mandatory subject for you to wrestle and tussle with. Because otherwise, it's just going to end up in conferences and universities. That's where the conversation is going to start and end.
Now, is that the level? I'll start with that. Is because you mentioned that universities were helping, and some of the educational sides are helping sort of push and train in AI. Is that where it stops? Is it sort of at the university level, or are there places where it's getting down into the primary and secondary school levels?
So from my observation, if there's like a private school or international school, you will be exposed to AI and all of these technologies. But if it's like a normal school, it doesn't infiltrate in terms of training. But the students themselves, because they are young, they know about ChatGPT, they are curious, they'll use AI. They may look up AI for maybe cheating in assignments, but they have some familiarity to it. It's not a stranger. It's not a stranger to them. But I find that a lot of private schools, though, have specific training and courses, especially well-resourced schools, to tell the parents, this is the future. Make sure your kids learn this. So that's the scene right now. But the public schools are lagging far behind.
No, is that also, are the teachers and instructors, the professors, is that part of it because they have not been exposed to AI, or is it something where it just hasn't been pushed into the curriculums yet?
No, it hasn't been pushed. From my observation, it hasn't been pushed the curriculums yet. I mean, professors, yes, but not your secondary math teacher. I remember, I don't know the year, I think it was 2023. might have been 2023. I had a visit to my home country, which is Zimbabwe, and ChatGPT was banned from Zimbabwe. So if you're in Zimbabwe, you couldn't use ChatGPT. There are many reasons. I can't tell you the reason why, but it is common knowledge that Zimbabwe is under sanctions due to its political history and all that type of stuff. So when I came here, I found like 2 students who had found a VPN system to get to ChatGPT, and they would write their essay using ChatGPT and hand it to the teachers. And the teachers had no clue that AI could even write an essay or AI could even exist, So that was a good year for them. But I say that point to say, no, there's still long way to go with secondary school teachers and primary school teachers. I mean, these are also older people who may not, who may be behind on technology in general. So yeah.
And that is where we're going to pause for right now because we have more to come. Dr. Maisiri was great. I love this conversation. If this is not a great pool of thought for you to just think of like some of the challenges and problems that are out there that maybe we don't think of in our normal days. There's a big difference between some of the stuff he's describing versus like, how do I make my spreadsheet calculate these numbers a little better or a little faster or something like that. So hopefully this opens you up to be maybe even a little bit more of a big thinker in some of the things that you're looking at. But never fear, we are not done. We're coming back with another episode next time around. We will continue our discussion with Dr. James, and we'll see where that goes. I think you'll find that it will be very useful, and one of those things that maybe it's plants a couple of seeds for some solutions that you can put together. Maybe it helps you think a little bit more about what is the actual cost behind using AI to generate a goofy picture of yourself and some of those kinds of things that are out there. As always, though, I want to thank you for your time, for hanging out with us. We love so much that you do this with us on a regular basis. Go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time.